And we are live. 5:55 on time. All right. Now, if we just keep that phone up. Yeah, there we go. All right. Welcome to the live debate. Uh, CW called this My Dinner with Randy. I call it CW versus Randy Maugans. I bring just desserts. So, I made this earlier and I had every intention of making lunch, but let's just open up the show. Hey, Randy, can you hear me? It's me, Suze. I'm making a video from a different dimension. I've never done this, and I'm all fired up and ready to go. Now, as you know, I've figured out another piece of the puzzle, and I got all these videos I gotta move, from Facebook over to YouTube, and it's been going really well. Having a lot of fun. Well, anyhow, I got the video of Chanter's with My Dinner with Randy, and I'll be your moderator. So, first what I'll do is I'll live stream it to Facebook. He doesn't even like Facebook. And then what I do is I just live stream it to YouTube and sit in the chair. And I do different things and talk more shit. So, anyhow, it's gonna be really funny. I think I gotta do it first almost. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna upload a few short ones. I think I'm gonna upload a few short ones, is what I'm gonna do. And then, after I eat my Cliff Bar, and then, wait a second. Because it's my dinner with Lane. Oh, no. Are you serious, Randy? Is that what I'm gonna do? All right, so here. Okay, check this out. As your moderator, I'll be having lunch with y'all. That's hey, classic. Randy. Right, we don't need to hear it again, Suze. It's just get on with your disclosure. And always remember, CW Chanter asks his audience, which is public, to mirror his videos. And I'm always there at the live stream or watching it after the fact. So let me do my little disclosure and introduce myself. I'm Suze Pratt, the holistic stylist, hostess at Sophia's Emporium, and nobody. The little orange pumpkin with no face. And I'm here to use this as a research piece, of course, and also to say hi to my buddy Randy Maugans. And to CW, I say, naughty, naughty. All right, let's hit it, get it, and go. My dinner with Randy. Oh, Lord have mercy. Here we go.
It's surprising to everybody, but what we should know is this. Real life people make real life networks. Yeah. And folks, the great thing about this thing is you can feel free to jump from the comment section to the YouTube content creator section to the internet radio Spreaker host section to the Facebook page hosting section anytime you want to.
Thank you.
And shortly thereafter, you will meet everybody. We are a family. We are the weird, wonderful weirdos who ask questions about, what we were taught in school and, didn't play by the rules and know that there's something messed up, and we look around and we ask questions and we make friends and we make enemies, and we're called human beings. You may have run into us every once in a while. So look, Randy, we have like many points of connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, actually, yeah.
Look at Randy.
Shout out to Jerry Cthulhu, crossing the streams.
Jerry,
Right?
Jerry.
Absolutely. Jerry Bear, what's up?
Major cross-pollinator, dude.
Jerry, right, who's like, he's is he a UFO contactee? No, he's just absolutely out here, interfacing, making connections, asking questions. We've got wonderful, beautiful people hanging out in the chat. Some wonderful, we know Shane in common, my boy Shane.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to Shane, the
Somebody tried to
ruiner.
take me down just now.
Hi, I'm the ruiner. I'm like, the ruiner? Like, it's such an imposing title. Shane.
Oh, my network's got me.
Shane, the fucking ruiner.
The fucking ruiner.
You hear number one?
Don't open my blog unless you
I
want
was
your
actually
paradigm
terrified by
challenged.
No, the first time I was like, I was going to talk to him, I'm like, I'm a little afraid here, because this is like the ruiner. Is he not going to come to my house and wreck it, or is he turn into the Hulk, or what happens?
Yeah.
How do I work this?
That's what Shane's up. He's
He gets on the phone and he's like this really nice guy, and you're going, you just wrecked my entire. Is this like David Banner here? You know?
No, absolutely. It's like what's behind the veil.
We're blowing the mystique on the whole thing.
No,
but
absolutely.
what the hell?
And when you finally meet Shane, he's like, "Hi, I'm Shane."
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, some people are gonna believe my story, some people aren't, but
Yep.
I'm Shane. If you want to believe me, that's cool. If you don't, like
I think it's funny how they start out
move on with your life journey.
in this laughter bonding.
Shane, the ruiner.
Usually laughing like that means
Well, you hang out
nervousness.
with Sethicus, Boaz. That guy's like all sorts of.
Sethicus.
Oh yeah.
Now there's some dark shit going on there. How
Absolutely.
about it?
Yeah,
This
man.
guy, it's fine. I met Sethicus down in Philadelphia. And he walks up to me, he's got his hood up, and he's got his beard pointed, and he's got the tats, and I'm going, this guy's a thrasher. And he's like, oh man, I just love you, and he puts his arms around me, and we embrace, and it's like,
Don't ruin the mystique, man. Don't ruin the mystique, man.
mystique.
I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, damn, I should have done that. Shoot yourself in black and white. Be like, all like Elvira about shit. Be like,
It is kind of awesome, isn't it? It's like
I kid because I love. You know what I mean? I kid because I love.
we should go back to black and white.
Okay, so I'm not going to be interrupting the gentleman tonight. I know usually I speak over CW, but I'm feeling pretty calm, pretty cool, collected. So I'll just stop and start the video. I think that'll be more effective. It's interesting, isn't it? That mystique, that subtle message that is coded. I think what Randy's doing here is illustrating the point that it's easy to be scared of anything, especially when looks are deceiving. But oh no, he knows what he's going in with you, Chanter. And he went willingly, because each one of you, he took the time to hang out with and interview and just see how much rope you needed to hang yourself. But let's continue. And oh yeah, these are all my beliefs and opinions. Randy Maugans doesn't have a mind flip on me or anything like that. And I know CW, I know you don't remember when you were drinking and acting a fool. And, misinterpreting many things that have to do with spirituality and politics and people that are involved in the team I'm in. I mean, I get it. You said sorry to Kara, and, you talked shit on Shane and Kara and Randy and Og, and, I mean, it's cool, it really is. But it's amazing how this medium shows the truth to be, isn't it, my fine, foolish friend?
Why not? The funny thing about black and white is I talk to my dad about this all the time, and he tells me, he goes, it's tripped out, but everybody who remembers those shows.
The dad you used to lawyer with that you left the firm, or he threw you out?
That Lucille Ball was a redhead, you know what I mean?
See, if you grew up in that era, like, we didn't have color TVs until I was 10 or 11 years.
Tag Lucille Ball, redhead. And that came from Chanter. I'm gonna get my notepad.
So, I mean, I saw those if there was a color. And when I finally saw that there was a part in color, I felt kind of screwed because I didn't know that before. It was interesting. So there's like this whole, yeah, you saw color because you filled it all in.
We fill in the blanks. We fill in the blanks. You know. And like Lord knows only where that's going to lead us to, you know, how all this stuff is working. But, you know, I don't know. It's weird because everybody does remember those things in color. And I to circle back, you know, I mean, like I kid around and I joke, you know, and people talk, you know, people might have like impressions about me, and they might think that it's strange that you're appearing on my channel. But like when we were opening up talking about Shane, or even talking about Seth, who I've never met, but I subscribe to his channel and whatever. You know what I mean? I kid because I love, you know, there's no hatred, you know, I'm not anti anybody. You know what I mean? There's no enemies as far as I'm concerned. Everybody should just talk and communicate with each other. And, you know, and we can kid, and we can also have, you know, maybe every once in a while have a criticisms. There's things that we have, you know, in common, and there's things that we don't have in common. You know, you're never really friends until you fight. You know, you're never really in a human relationship with people until there's not only, you know, oh yeah, I agree with you on this, and I agree with you this, and those guys are jerks, and those guys are jerks. There's got to be inner conflict where you work individual stuff out, and you really come together. You know, I only say that because, you know, if you and I are talking and all this stuff in the brouhaha and our individual in little tide pool that we live in with all these other wonderful strangers that we were talking about before. You know, there's been a lot of talk about conflict and fighting and disagreement and, you know, agendas. And, you know, remember growing up, you know, your family, I mean, people fight, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no such thing as just like everybody in coexistence and peace, like 24 hours a day. Maybe on like the 99th or 11th dimension, but like
The 99th or 11th dimension. Now hang on, CW. Because remember, you were the guy that invited me on spirituality and politics, then proceeded to encourage others to mock me, actually say that I was insane, which you were in unison with Mel V on, because of course that was the PR piece that she had put out on me, and y'all are hooked up. Now always keep in mind, Randy knew that. Randy knows more than you will ever be privy to understand. So you start out with a bunch of laughing. Randy knows what he's ready for. You say that you have no enemies, but you know full well that you are stealing intellectual property. Like, for example, you're using all the words that I've used first, and you love to say who did something first. So try to disprove that you said the words that I use, like all of y'all, because I say all y'all thousands of times on video. Show me where you did it before, I'll say 2015. Find me one of your brilliant videos where you said all y'all. There won't be one. You didn't start saying it till 2016. Right. And remember, you're the atheist and I'm the spiritual researcher, and Randy is the ex-minister and, you know, the seeker. I mean, the one that has really made a very decent show. And in regard to people being surprised he's on your show, you're always trying to climb the ladder and tag on to somebody bigger and better, aren't you? It's kind of shameful, it really is. I mean, you get views for just nonstop chaos, where somebody like Randy gets views because he brings relevant information. Now here again, since I'm nobody in this, always remember how much relevant information that I brought and cataloged, and you had your money and your hopes on the hope that I would be buried like the little orange pumpkin. So never forget, we can always go back into videos. You can run and you can hide, you think, but I've already got the footage of your videos. That's how I do it, man. Okay. I also listen to you, not because I enjoy it, but because you were my pet project. CCN was the story that I broke. I mean, Randy brought it first, but I was there to bring the evidence out. And y'all got that figured out now, remember? Even Mel figured it out, which is genius for a ding-a-ling like her. Okay. So, you still won't mention my name, which is good because you know the name, the minute you mention it, the game's over. So we'll expect to see you mention my name and maybe break out into some slander or something. I'm a little bit psychic. And I also know this is messing you up. And when I say a little, I'm talking about like 1,000 more times than you because you think we're all the same and equal, but obviously we're not. Even though we are all one. Okay. Let's see. You want to work individual stuff out. See, that's what really bugs a lot of you nefarious people. You really expect that you run the rules and that I would come on your show to debate you? I mean, you must be nuttier than a fruitcake and as high as 16 hippies, even though you're on the wagon. It's cool. But see, I do it a different way. And that's what got me in trouble in the beginning, because I didn't do it the way of the suckasses. And that is why Mr. Maugans will refer to me as his secret weapon. Because I survived the crucifixion, remember? Okay. And, yeah. 8.5 times out of 10, I disagree with you. And that's why I'm here.
Here on planet Earth, you know, you struggle and you fight with your brothers and sisters sometimes, you know?
Brutal. It's brutal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, you know, especially with the realer it gets, you know?
You know, I remember, and I've told this story, and it was like, people would say, so what was like Christmas Eve like at your house? And I'm like, we went to my Uncle Mike's, and we drank red Paisano wine and beer and shots, and my uncles went out in the front yard and beat the shit out of each other. That was Christmas Eve. Because they were Irish, they were crazy. They were,
Right.
you know, you throw in a couple of Polacks and you get the guys from the steel yard and the railroad coming in, and things get crazy. You know, Democrats and Republicans, they took that shit seriously. And somebody was going to get punched out because they'd say something. Somebody get called a honky, somebody get called a, you know, whatever. And that was Christmas Eve. There you go. Peace in Jesus' name, baby.
That's it. Hey, you know, but you know, this is and that's, you know, that's a slice of reality pie. Believe you me, you know, it's only we look at the movie screen, we look at the TV picture of the perfect image of what it should be like, but the reality is the reality. But the reality is so good because that scenario that you just painted was the scenario that existed for many people, for a lot of people, for human beings on planet Earth, stretching on until when we arrived from wherever we arrived at. You know what I mean? I mean, that's life.
It's not Norman Rockwell's America, man. I mean,
no.
You know, I don't know what you remember. Norman Rockwell's America, you know, Life magazine, and you know, they'd be sitting there with the nice plump golden turkey and the cranberry sauce, and Grandma was this jolly woman with rosy cheeks smiling. It wasn't really like that. That was all advertising. That's Madison Avenue.
Sure, and
everybody was white too, by the way. Let's not forget.
What was that?
We got a little bit of latency on the.
Yeah, we do. You know, unfortunately, and you know, when I set this up, I should have reminded myself that I've been having some trouble with my internet in my basement, but hopefully we hang out and we're doing okay. A little bit latency. I don't know how, am I chopping up terribly for you? We're doing okay on
No,
that.
you're totally, there you go, you froze up for a minute. It's okay, it's all
Okay,
good.
that happens.
I'll just slow down.
And you know what? Well, then, it gives us a great
Too many
opportunity to have
CPUs,
a
Randy.
potlatch with our fellow conspiratard weirdos by saying, if we're having latency, I guess we're scaring some people. The NSA, CIA,
Yeah.
they don't want us talking, right? But that's okay because with our positive energy, we're just gonna white light the shit out of this thing, and you can try and hit us with your broadcast beams and your scalar technology internet interface.
Hey, wait a second, CW, while you're taking that drink. Why is it that just on your most recent show that you were mocking Randy and saying he was delusional about these energy weapons, but here you agree with him? So, perfect example as moderator of this debate. You're a suck ass. You don't stay with your principles or beliefs, you adjust them to suit other people. Now, let's cover a few other things while we're here. Brutal. It's brutal. Well, it's especially brutal when you pick on girls. And see, of course, Randy knew you picked on me. Ask Randy what he thinks about me sometime. Why don't you get him to write me a recommendation? Wait till you see what I bring later tonight. More disclosure on what I've been through and how they actually have documented and verified what I say. Now, the whole Irish story that Randy brings, okay? What that was, is that was an opening and a place where he could actually, mock his own celebrants. You don't get it. He didn't say that he had a great time getting all boozed up and talking bullshit. But you know what's funny? You were still drinking during that time. And do you remember that whacked out video that you did at the bar on Christmas Eve? You were drunk as a skunk, dude, remember? And you were singing on stage and telling your story, and it was very dark. It was really sad. That was when your wife told you that if you didn't get your shit together, you was out of that house and you wasn't going to have her or those twins of yours. Remember? And now you've been clean and sober, allegedly, pushing 75 days. And hey, good for you. But your behavior is exactly the same as it was before. And I have to ask myself, are you sure you're not fibbing just a little bit? Because usually people with your kind of drug addiction, when it's booze, pills, and grass all combined into a bipolar crack pipe of hell, I don't see people just like, poof, just like that, you're clean. Don't you have some recovering stories or anything to share with us about how you beat addiction? Maybe next to be your addiction to food, we'll see. Alright. Now, as far as it goes, Chanter, I want you to know that I actively and vocally choose not to participate in holidays, and Mr. Maugans knows that as well, and I've made many statements on that. So, here again, monkey see, monkey do, and he's holding a big old mirror up to you, and letting you do your thing. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And as far as your internet connection goes, here's what I'm going to say. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Alright.
Yeah, I'm just
We're
waiting
just
for
gonna
the
keep on
helicopter.
keeping on.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the helicopter to come over. That normally happens here.
Can I tell you something? Half the time that I participate in this thing, I'm hoping that please, somebody kidnap me. Just to let me know that, you know what I mean, that there's something out there, you know what I mean? The Greys and the aliens, I'm always like, yeah, and I totally don't believe in gray aliens. They don't exist. I hang out with people who hang out with gray aliens, like, yo, so
It's one of those moments when you go, now would be the perfect time for an abduction. They walk in, they duct tape you, they put you on their little heads.
Right. I'm like the guy to kidnap, right? Or how
about, then they do the full body thing where they just kind of beam you up, and then you're like in the midair and in rapid eye movement, just going, and they go, take me to your leader. And Absolutely. You wind up being sucked into the tube, but that never happens.
I just hope I get like the nice guys, the ones who like communicate with me and like want to know me, like they're here to help me concentrate on my heart center. And I've got like 880,000 children with them, and they all look slightly like me, but a little bit like weirdo, and they're all aliens, and I'm like, I just hope I don't get abducted by the other guys. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, you got interdimensional space travel, but you don't got lube, brothers.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Come on, what's up? Really?
No jam jelly for you, dude.
Right. Seriously, like if you want my DNA sample, that's cool. You just like come up to me slowly, like, hey, check it out. You always want me nailing. Here I am. By the way, while I'm here, some of your DNA, and I'd be like, straight up, fun, whatever, right?
It does. Yeah, a tongue swab will work.
Blood sample. I'm telling you,
probing thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just like hang outside, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Hey, you like the movie? You know what I mean? Come hang. And people will be like, fine, whatever. But I don't know. I guess, it depends on who I guess your lottery ticket comes up, and your contact experience.
When did you do
It's either going to be a good one or a bad one. And then you ask yourself this question. How much of it is just there's some sort of experience that happens with an interdimensional entity? And some people, like, we drop acid, right? Some people, the doors of perception open, they get that freedom.
Are you
and
sure? Check that date.
They have a negative experience, for whatever reason, not because they're wrong or bad, just for whatever reason, how those things happen, they don't process it correctly, they have a bad experience. And some people, fly. So I wonder if, and then people ask all sorts of questions about these experiences that people are having. This is the world we live in, right? This is the world that you and I live in. That people don't only just talk about, oh yeah, Trump versus Clinton. There are people out here being like, yeah, so I go a lot of these contactee conferences, and even the people that are having positive experiences but maybe for the wrong reasons. A reptilian can look like a Palladium, if they want to. That's all I'm saying about it. You know what I mean? Is this the world we live in, right?
Yeah, it's the world we live in. And I engage a fair amount of that. I'm pretty.
I have to.
I'm pretty. Well, there's things I know, there's things I suspect, and there's things I'm curious about. I'm curious about what people's concepts are about extraordinary things. So how do I find a chat room here? Is that like on the YouTube page?
So if you go to YouTube, number one, when you go to the YouTube page, just make sure that the page is muted, or else you'll get feedback because you'll hear our audio on delay.
Oh yeah, right. That's horrible because then you get
terrified.
But then next to the screen, you should see live chat, and you can actually see at the top where it says live chat, and then there'll be 3 little dots. If you go on that, there's actually an option to pop it out.
Y'all are probably at Spellcast Central on Zoom with Mel right now going,
we don't want to screw with bandwidth.
Oh.
Gerald Paris. Gerald, long time no see. Love to Gerald. Shout outs to my boy. Hope everything's going good. Reams the Omaha band. Figuring out some technical. Are they back? How we doing, Randy?
Okay, well, I'm not seeing it. I'm also gonna completely screw the pooch here with bandwidth if I try. So
don't bother. Don't
I'll
worry.
let you take care of the chat.
We'll do it. So yeah, at the end of the day, basically, it's gonna.
Wait. At the end of the day, remember, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And it's your internet that's messing up Randy's clean stream. You get it? It's kind of like sharing underwear with people that are really funky. And this plasma screen stuff. I mean, sometimes dirty rotten can affect other broadcasters. Now, let's just go over a couple things that I think are really important from this little segment. Why do you want to be kidnapped? I mean, is that like another one of these fetish fantasies of yours? I find that odd, especially when you have such big gaps of time in your story about your own life. I wouldn't think that that would be good for you very much. And you don't believe in grays, but you hang out with them. Now, see, that's kind of like your Commonwealth chanting. I don't get how you can be an atheist running a religion still. So if you could elaborate in a response and just address it, to all of the people and not new age woo woo, because that's not me and I told you, so don't even try to pull that MO. Alright. So I shared this great video with Randy Maugans today, CW. I don't want to seem like I'm not equal in my conversations, so I'm going to tell you about it. Really nice lady. You mess with her, we're going to mess you up. But anyhow, her name is Barbara Lamb. And she's at this Midwest Ozark conference. This was just a couple weeks. And I learned so much from that whole experience that I shared it to Randy. And I said, you know what? I think that this is your perfect witness to bring forward to counterattack all that Corey Good, David Wilcox, Gaia TV, Blue Avian stuff that you just get such a hard on over. But here again, you probably don't want to interfere in this process because believe me, she's already got the messages and she knows who's who. So when Randy eventually interviews her, that'd be a great show for you to watch. And I think it would give you a broader awareness because it surely did me. Now, I think it was classic when Randy got a chance to say something and he actually went into a phrase and a sound that reminded me to mention your buddy, Rex at the Leak Project. Because I know he gets on your last nerve and Lee Veltman feeds you all that intel. Probably, a few other friends of yours too. It's no big deal. I do keep up with people even though I'm nobody. And always remember, Rex at the Leak Project is connected to Courtney Brown and the remote viewers who you like to mock so much. And always remember that Randy knew Courtney Brown long before you ever got your boots wet online. And he also knows that Courtney's mission was to validate the existence of the human soul, and he set out to do that in 1996 when you were just a kid. Probably in college or something, 42. We'd have to do the math. But in the meantime, that doesn't seem like something you'd resonate with anyhow, and I find it very childish that when you talk about remote viewing, you like to take people 20 years back in the history instead of deal with current time. Unless you go into Funny Guy and you mock the war in the heavens and all that story. I've heard you do it once. I'll be listening for more. Now, this whole thing with your tongue, we've talked about it many times. You have a chronic yeast infection in your mouth, which is why your tongue is white. These white things jump out onto your lip. And I'm telling you what, dude, you need to do a colon cleanse, a parasite cleanse. Because if I'm seeing it, Just imagine how many other people are. And here again, I'm not perfect. But you've mocked everything about me. And I've actually done videos on parasites, worms, colon cleanses, and brought all sorts of research evidence, including out of my own physical body and experience. So, I don't think you should take that white tongue so lightly. Now, you streamed this June 7th, 1917. And, I mean, you still want to know why some people can't process the information while others just seem to fly. And you ask questions about me like that. Like you guys' question was with me is, am I a data hacker? Who am I with? And how do I do what I do? And you could never accept the simple concept that it's just me, Suze. But here again, I know you got a thing with women. And I know you don't like strong women. You like the ones you can push around. Just really bothers me. I mean, you should have never attacked me. You should have never tried to run the scam. And like I said, and I'll say it again, you were just like the schmuck that got caught holding the bag when all your buddies all said separate and divide and we'll meet back up at the OK Corral. I mean, what kind of fucking stupid are you? Oh, that's right, we already know. Alright. Now, I'd like to know, since you're such an expert, CW, what is the right reason to shapeshift? Because you've been making fun about that too. And connecting it a little bit with Elvis. So I just want to bring up, don't step on his blue suede shoes. You have no concept of what you're dealing with. Alright. He has two. Oh, and Randy, see, there's the things that you know, there's the things that you question and are curious about, and the things that you believe, and we've talked about that. So if you go back to your teenage years when you're developing your ego that says this is who I am and this is what I do, it actually breaks down from there, and it's the things that you believe you know, the things that you do know by experience, and the things that you believe and you don't know why the hell you believe them, and that's your conditioning. And it's nice that you always mention the people that are in the struggle with you. So, that's nice. Hey, Funny Sonny's live. I think you tried to get in that chat and they threw you out. They keep a pretty good eye out for trolls. And you've been mentioning a lot of things that I know you picked up there. I mean, I still have to backtrack and still do your presidential drawing, and I'm the one who works here now, and yakety yak.
What's going to happen is I was giving some shout outs as we were figuring out the technical situation. But what we'll do is you and me will talk, and then maybe at the end we'll take a look at the chat, and if people have specific questions about to me or you, or about the conversation in general, then we'll kick it to that. But people are saying hi. I can tell you that we have 36 viewers, people watching already, which is beautiful. Nice. It's beautiful. Nice. I think that's wonderful.
It's all about the numbers.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. And so
that's a big enough party to roll out a keg in my world. So
listen, you know what? See, and that's the other thing. We all come out here. I mean, if you make it, you're trying to communicate. You're trying to talk. If you're trying to talk and communicate, generally, there's a feeling that you want to get your voice out there, and it involves all sorts of questions and compromises along the way. You know what I mean? Is it okay to take this speaking engagement over here, or should I appear on this channel over here, even though I might not agree with all the you do things, but you get on this adventure of trying to spread your voice out there.
Little barrier's so deep, she'll never
I really
get
don't
up.
know where I was going with that.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was
other
your
than
voice.
we were talking
you and I, well, You and I talked about this the first time, maybe about a month ago, discussing various and sundry tawdry things upon the internet.
Right.
And, you were very politic about it. You were very polite. And you were like, there's some things we don't agree about. And I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like,
everybody. You know what it's like to be me? No. You know what it's like to be me? Every time I get contacted by someone who I respect in this community, they always say, CW, I just learned about your channel. I think you're doing good work out here. Good stuff on this piece, this piece, this piece. I can't wait to see what you do next. We should talk sometime. And we start talking. In the meantime, I'm thinking, now, what's going to happen when they find out that before episode 37, 42, and 97 they saw on episode 13 through 17, I was like, Cara St. Louis. You know what I mean?
And you still laugh about it. So see here again. Randy was shocked that you were polite because he's seen you be a perpetual jackass. He has a certain amount of empathy for you. And, I mean, he's gonna probably say you have hopefully 3 good points to work with, but this whole thing about questions and compromises and who's it okay to talk to. Now, surely, just like what Mel said, remember your buddy Mel said that Randy intimidated her and made her not talk or like, for example, Zen Gardner. You remember that Zen on Spirituality channel you were talking about recently too. I know these are 2 different Zens, but you love to tie things together, just like your buddy Z. That was nice you had him on one of your recent shows. We'll have to address that too, because he better just crawl back into the hole he came from. I mean, we're way too close to breaking this code. I think he should be saying danger, Will Robinson. And oh yeah, I said it before you did too, so better tag that one too, one of my many sayings. Okay. Now, you guys talked a month before this interview, and you were talking about all the little mentionables on the internet. I think you were fishing for information. How do you like that? Specific questions for either you or Randy. Alright. We'll continue. I said everything I wanted to say. And I hope you do appreciate my politeness, because usually I just yell over you. But you're pretty loud, and you're surely a clown tonight, so I don't want to get involved in y'all's Black Panther party.
That's Randy Maugans. This doucher. Fucking yeah. Hi, I'm Randy Maugans, and I know Shane the Ruiner. Bah. You know what I mean? Randy, you want to talk? Awesome. Shit. Oh, fuck. So, and then you're like, but it's one of those things, you know what I mean? At the same, when I said Cara St. Louis, that wasn't a joke, and I invoke her name specifically because we know her in common too. There's also
we do.
Connect, but I
mean, well, if you look at it like it's just a wheel, and they come together and they do this gear thing where they mesh for a while, they touch, and then they're completely oppositional at another point where they're not engaged at all. And so the wheels are in spin. And in that time, and almost none of the people that we've mentioned in commons at some point have I probably not had a good piss out with them.
Absolutely.
Even it's just a hissy fit. Even with Shane, who is as mellow, as cool as possible, and it's kind of like, Shane, what the fuck are you doing?
After a while.
Or Cara, calm down,
Yeah, she got pissed off at me over nothing. I was like, what? Before I knew it, I was like, oh, shit, really? But that's
kind of, but that's how is that not like the real world anyway? I mean,
that is the Listen, the conclusion of my last talk with Shane was basically, if you are, if this experience is happening here, discussing alien contact and the Illuminati and the Cabal, or whether it's happening at like the water cooler at the local, paper supply company, it's the exact same experience. These are people having human experiences. A lot of it. Is there bigger stuff going on in the world? Sure, there is. But for the most part, the majority of the frisson and energy that we see is just people in the real world making real world moves that we all have to make. You know what I mean? That we all have to make. You know, you don't want to be compromised at the same time. The rent's got to be paid. You know what I mean? Until the perfect world of the anarchist libertarian revolution happens and everyone's getting everything for gratis, right? Until that time comes around, like you got to keep your electric bill on, you got to pay for your internet, people have to do what they have to do, right? So there's going to be compromises along the way. You're going to have to do something, right? At some point, right? At some point, everybody's got to hoe out to something to get that energy to keep the thing going. It is what it is.
I mean, you can imagine that I have a fair amount of interactions with people, and there are different points along the grid. And I get people who ask me these like really wild questions, like deep state questions and questions about spiritual transcendence and are these people human? Are they Draco reptilians? And it'll get so into minutia. And I had somebody that, one night he's asking me, just pelting me with questions. I'm like, dude, you got to slow down a little bit. For your sake, you need to slow down. I'm like, look, I can spin on this shit all night, but remember something. I'm a guy that sometimes forgets to change the oil in my car. I mean, seriously, you cannot be that abstract that you forget that there's actually shit that has to be done in the real world. So, because the people will go off this awakening process, whatever you want to call it. There's a point where there's a fixation on it. It's an addiction. Mm-hmm. They've hit a brain center that's spinning off like massive amounts of adrenaline and lots of other chemicals, and they're like high on this.
Absolutely.
And I get that. I think anybody that goes through the awakening experience goes through that period where they're really like digger dog. They're like they want to go to the center of the earth to figure this shit out. It's like there's no rabbit hole they will not go down. And it's like the more shock value it has. And I know this. I did this. The more shock value there is, the more you think nothing can top the last thing you saw. You go looking for that next hit.
Absolutely.
And this will emotionally devastate some people. I've seen it. I've seen where people just like, I don't give a fuck about anything anymore. What the hell should I care about now? We're screwed. We're being chemtrailed. We're being harped. All our food's poison. The water's screwed. My kids are deformed. My genetics are messed up. My sperm's blank. What do I got left to live for? And I'm like, wait a minute. That wasn't the point of the conversation. It wasn't to amass all this gloom and doom. It was just to get you to a place where you faced a reality in a way that left you cope with it psychologically, and you're so not coping with it psychologically right now.
Isn't that the truth, Randy? Now, okay, here's what's funny about this. Do you remember on Facebook, Randy, where they find it very interesting to see that 6 points of separation and take it down to the one person that connected all the people? For me, that was you. I mean, you had me on your show, and from there, it just all went, it all just arose, didn't it, my friend? Now, in the meantime, we're talking about people that aren't engaged in the wheel. And so, here again, It is. It's devastating for people like CW that want to actually run the wheel, tell it where to go, but they're not really in the know because they can't believe it in their heart or experience it within their own selves. It is. It's tough, and that's why I take pity on CW for not really tearing him a new asshole because I know he's been through a lot of tough stuff. Now, I want CW to know that during you and my most recent conversation, you did confirm that I'm being cool. So, see, this whole thing about adrenaline and cortisol, right? You know about this because of blood type information. So, I've admitted publicly many years ago, with all the extensive blood work and blood type research I've done, that A blood types and ABs have a high amount of adrenaline and cortisol, and those are the stress hormones. And, like if you're an O blood type, and I'm not sure, Chanter, he doesn't, I'm sure he's one of those ones that say, well, I don't know what my blood type is, I'm the universal donor. Oh, okay, you're an O. But in the meantime, they don't have high levels of adrenaline and cortisol. They are lacking in those happy hormones, dopamine, melatonin, things like that. And that's why the bipolar and different things. Now, I know that here again, we've all struggled with depression. All of us. But when people purposely want to depress you, see, these are the people that are dangerous. And as you know, you're dealing with one in this little show here. Okay. So, the aliens, the Illuminati, and the Cabal. I'm warning you, CW. You better get right on the difference between aliens and extraterrestrials. You really need to do some studying because, to me, you're kindergarten level with this information. And I know you got your buddy, the Illuminati guy that wears the mask. You just had him on most recently playing the ukulele, the rock band guy. But this Illuminati thing was originally the Illumined. And mystery schools were oral traditions because they knew they were going to destroy the books. So I don't think you should really make fun of the Cabal, especially when there has to be someone that's decent in each one of these hierarchical families that could pass the psychopath test and not be one. Because we really need structure in this new world. And anytime you want to hop on, dude, and leave your old program behind, don't get me wrong, there's going to be plenty of help. But to keep mocking it and just do it for views and response and to get people to have strong emotions about you, it's really vampiric, isn't it? Now, you say that it's impossible to not be compromised because everybody has to pay their rent. Just remember, your nemesis, Suze, has not been compromised. Get it through your fat head. And that's why I'm true. I'm not paid for by anybody. I do my own work, and even though I'm nobody, I know more than a dozen of you and your friends put together. So see, I'm a valuable asset. And not an ass. An asset. Get it? Okay. They do say, though, that I'm 1,001% asshole because they need a good asshole to catch the bad assholes. So I'll admit that. Okay. Anarchist libertarian revolution? See, you're showing your true colors. Your statement, not his. People do what they have to do and everybody hoes themselves out. Here again, you know nothing about lovemaking. And most guys with your mentality, the first time that they put their hand up a girl's shirt or down her pants, well, that makes her a whore when you're bragging to your friends. So this whole thing about whoring yourself out, I mean, just 'cause you're cheap. Okay. People ask Randy a lot of questions that it really gets on his nerves, of course, because he's telling him, slow down, man, you're going to shatter your reality. And the biggest thing is through all this, see, where I've got a strong advantage is I have never given up through the many hardships in my life, where you gotta always remember, you kind of had it a little cushy, pushy, remember? I mean, you've admitted it and mocked it. Okay. I think I'm good. Let's continue.
In a way, you almost become like a therapist.
Right. Well, absolutely. And at the end of the day, no matter what the scenario you finally figure out at the end, first of all, when you were talking about going down the wormhole, the rabbit hole, the fact of the matter is that there's like an infinite number of players and an infinite number of points. You can make infinite number of connections all over the place. It's like a connect the dots, painting where there's like a billion dots.
Yeah.
You want to paint a smiley face. You want to connect the dots and make a frowny face. It's like however you process it, and it's true. Like no matter what the scenario is, well, first of all, there's a couple of things going on. You have to deconstruct the scenario. There's number one, what's really going on, because there's anticipated experiences, there's actual connections, there's positive situations, and there's the reality. Like I always tell people, like, don't worry about, Draco reptilian hybrids, the smart meters, when, you can't figure out, how to, make your own bed in the morning or get up and out of, get a job or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, concentrate on coming back to fundamentals of what's really happening. What can you really know that's going on in your world? You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. Because people do get they're if you go to their apartment, their house, their room, their couch that they're currently surfing on, their actual tethered physical reality is abysmal. They're adrift, literally and figuratively, right? But where are they spending all their energy? What are they doing all day? They might be straight, narrow, and sober, but they're not concentrating on the real reality around them. They're on forums 24 hours a day, or YouTube, or now, analyzing, they can't figure out how to make their bed in the morning, but they're trying to figure out making a compilation video of clips to explain Manchester. You know what I mean? Why that's a false flag. You know what I mean? And why that's connected to the Illuminati cabal and Mark Dice, and don't you understand, pedogate and Podesta emails and but Trump's cool, you know what I mean, and Kekistan, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? But the reality is mom's still, washing their socks.
Yeah, well, and when we've got people.
It's some of this stuff that people are fixated on in this, being red pilled, awakening experience. How much of it's just like fucking might be total fucking people blithering on about bullshit, right? People just wasting their time.
There's a fantasy level to a lot of this stuff. And I mean, you do have to parse this. I talk about some pretty incredible shit at times on my shows. I post things on Facebook that will challenge your sense of reality. By the same token, a lot of it really is practical. At the end of the day, it's good to go out and mow the grass. It's good to go do the garden or walk your dog or take your kids out and play ball or do something that's actually human.
Right.
Assuming you have a family. We have people that, like you said, they live on chats, they live in these virtual worlds. We have people who are spinning off all kinds of things about solar warden programs and hauling meteorites out of the middle of space and stuff, and you find out they're living in their mother's basement and they're 42 years old and they've never had a job and they're on disability.
Hey, shut up. Wait, I told you that in confidence. What? Whoa.
Not personal, not personal.
Close to home. Whoa!
Ooh,
no,
did we hit one?
What? I got a Canadian girlfriend. She's cool, but don't like, she doesn't know on the internet. She's a Quaker. And she's Amish, and she doesn't like webcams.
Hey, the Amish do use webcams, though.
That break my heart. Don't tell me that, man. Really? How do
They're
they
only adapters.
swear that?
No, they know that I live near Amish.
Yeah.
In the 90s, I was driving in and out of Amish country all week. They had sheds in the middle of a field where they kept mobile phones. That you would go out there and you would use the mobile phone in the middle of the field. They had fax machines in the barn.
No, I mean, I did.
Seriously. These were early adapters. These people,
Right.
they found a way to work this that somehow, regardless of the suspension of the fact that they're not supposed to use cameras,
Right.
they worked it all out.
But that's what people do, and that's why I have my own. I love religion, and I'm a fan of religion. I have my own religion, but part
I
of
know
it is,
you do.
yeah, absolutely.
You're
But
sort
part
of a
it is-
cult leader.
Hey, listen. That's what we're talking. People, what people do to get around rules. People function. So, do you know about the concept of a like a Shabbat elevator? So,
Never
like,
heard that.
no, absolutely. Like on during Shabbos, Jews aren't allowed to use electricity.
Right.
You're not supposed to flip on a light or anything like this. So they have things like, telephones and elevators, and so what, that you can't press a button to make anything function like that. But what if you need to visit someone in the hospital on a Friday? So they have things that are like basically like, I'm Jewish culturally, so, and I had a bar mitzvah and everything, so I don't want people to think I'm being like a racist here, but it's people are funny, so they have special phones that you can use during Shabbos, where basically instead of dialing the phone, if you press a button like to dial a keypad, that would be wrong, because it's just like flipping the light switch. So what they do is it's a little metal stick, and instead of buttons, there's little holes, and when you press the stick into the hole, basically it's like the phone goes through a random generator, and it just waits till it hits that number randomly that you've cued in. So you haven't pressed the button or flicked the switch. Technically, the machine did it. It's crazy, and the elevators, they stop on every floor, so you don't have to worry about pressing the button. It'll get to your floor eventually. You wait for the door to open. You didn't make the door open. The door opened on its own. You walk in. That's okay. We can walk on Shabbos, and the elevator just goes. And then when it opens on the floor that you need to go to, you get off. And then you didn't press a button. You didn't flick a switch. So no worries. It's okay. The rabbi said. There's a Penn and Teller episode. They did Penn and Teller the Magicians did a fantastic TV series. You can find it all over YouTube, called Penn and Teller's Bullshit. And they did an episode on, religious laws and these sort of things, and how people, get around them and function around them. And that's part of what inspired me to do my own religion, as being a student of religions and trying to join several unsuccessfully. I realized, studying the history of them, that this is just what people do. They invent these weird rules, and it's this game that we play that gives some sort of structure to something that makes us feel better about being alive in a world where, you live, and sometimes good things happen, and that's beautiful, but a lot of times bad things happen, and you got to deal with it. You got to find some way to deal with it, and then you die. You know what I mean? And so how do you deal with that? And so people come up with all these beliefs and these things. And I think that's why I said I'll make my own too, because everyone else does. That's what everybody else did. You know what I mean? I don't for a minute think that any angel spoke to Joseph Smith, or, God went to Muhammad or Moses. I think
It was the magic glasses, man.
Said people need some sort of structure. They need some sort of rules. Fine, here we go.
We said that.
Killing's a bad thing. Don't do that.
But well, you can do it, but it has to be the right enemy. The sanctified enemy is the big part of this.
So I know that you started off in Christian broadcasting back in the day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do you still consider yourself a Christian?
No.
No.
Right. So, if Randy still doesn't consider himself a traditional Christian, why is it that you, the Jewish raised purveyor of religions that you couldn't sink into, refer so much to the tricks of your trade? Now, remember the 12 tribes of Israel aren't all Jewish, CW. I don't know if you got the memo. But with all these little loopholes, like holes instead of buttons, these special phones with these metal sticks, and, all of these little things, did you know that the Zadokim, the Zanash, have over 600 kosher requirements? So if you really think about that, I mean, you're bringing up such unique things. I have to ask you here again, are you trying to deny that you're not part of the Zanash? I mean, do you act like you don't know what I mean? And really quick, what's this thing about Canadians? Because boy, do I get a lot of intel from Canada. I mean, it's almost like you were psychic and knew that this Canadian thing was coming up. I mean, unless you were raised there. Now, I think it's funny that you have to broadcast in your basement so your wife doesn't hear what you're doing. And if you're going to keep blaming that for your shoddy podcasts, I mean, I don't know, man. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? If you would have been honest with your wife, instead of mocking her publicly on videos, you might be in a different place right now. Boy, do I have a lot of stuff to cover here. Now, what makes me have a background is what someone would consider a therapist. Well, you see here again, hairdressers have all that background training. And if you're the kind of hairdresser I am, you actually care about the people because you're interacting with them on a very personal level, anywhere from 5 to 35 years. And so it's very easy to really learn all the different little quirks about people that they can acquire through their religion or through astrology or through esoteric practices. So, for example, as a teenager when you were developing your ego, that was the worst time to read the Satanic Bible. You should have done it when you were older and more prepared and knew why you believed what you believed so you didn't get, what do you call that when, like sarcastic? You're sarcastic. And I know it's cute, but not really. Now this point system, let me tell you about it. So they knew who you are before you come in. And then they look at your variables. It'd be like going to the horse track. And so they put all these things together and they develop odds, along with the straw man and the social security and the money you're worth and, what makes you valuable. And then they bet on if you're going to survive to the point where you reach your mission. So I just wanted to fill you in on the point system. I know all about it. And here again, this video that I shared with Randy is fantastic because they really defined hybrids well, and it was interesting that there were good reptilian hybrids because people like yourself with all this disinformation, you almost start to believe that all reptilians are bad, just like all of a particular group. And as you know, you can have the most dirty, rotten group and they'll be good people and it won't there. It's just they're not running the show. Manchester false flag. Are you talking about Manchester over in the UK? And if so, are you directing that towards Hampstead? Because you love to talk about that and like we showed in our last live stream published on YouTube today, you didn't even believe that child trafficking was real, and I brought all that information. So I'm just curious how that works with you. Pedogate and pills, leveled fantasy. Oh, and what Randy told me. Yeah. Randy was insistent when this was all going on that I really focus. And I thought, come on, Randy. Are you telling me I'm not focused? So, I've been focused forever, and he knows that. But it was a way to get me to really hone in and see where I needed to be, which I do really appreciate, by the way, Randy. Yeah, and what the way I've lived is exactly what I talk about all the time, the human life and life charting. And I've done that specifically for you, as well as many people, and extensively on my own self. And I'm very practical, and I'm going to give you that suggestion again, so maybe when you listen to this, you'll start to figure it out. You need to love what you do. So no matter what you do, you have to break it up. And that means you don't spend all day on it. So you do physical, you break for some mental activities, some meditative, spiritual, commonwealth chanting stuff in your case, you know, and then also artistic. Now, I'm a fantastic multitasker. So when you ask how do I do what I do, I want to give you an example. I can listen to 2 conversations at once and retain the information, and they are watching me do it 24/7. As well as I work on my jewelry, or I do something creative when I'm just sitting saying, why do I waste my time on this guy? Because see, there is no waste of time. And if I can do more things in the time that you can do a half a thing in, well then, now you know how I do what I do. Been doing it all day today and all day yesterday too, as you should see on YouTube. Alright, we covered it. Good for us. Let's get to getting, Randy.
Okay, so the New and the Old Testament.
That said, I find the words of the person that they call Jesus Christ in the Bible to be marvelously clarifying. His name wasn't really Jesus, and everything built around it is bullshit. But there's a kernel there that I hang on to. But do I practice as a Christian? No, I was actually an ordained minister. I function as an itinerant minister.
Oh, wow.
So, and I did that until 2010 when I went and looked at this book and I went, it's full of murder and rape, and this guy's sending people out to slaughter people, and it's like looting and pillage, and they're sacrificing animals, and my God, at one point, they're putting their kids on brazen altars and burning them, and we're worried about Satanism? Really?
Hey, you know what I mean? So now let's ask ourselves this question. So we obviously both know the material, the source material.
Yeah.
So right after Moses gives the or thou shalt not murder.
Breaking up.
Well, people want to parse it out, right? The very next thing, I tell people this all the time. I go, it's so brazen and blazing in the Bible. I think that there's a possibility that are we being taught something about the nature of the cruelty of life in this one moment where right after Moses literally brings the 10 Commandments down, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not rape, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Literally, I tell people this all the time. They act like I'm like bullshitting. Literally, the next thing he does is, okay, now that I've given these 10 Commandments, you see over there? Okay, here's what I want you to do. Number 1, kill all the dudes. Fuck those guys, right? Kill those motherfuckers. They gotta die. I'm your God. You're the chosen people. Fuck those motherfuckers. Kill them. Yeah. And then, all the broads that they've been with, used, the ones with some life in them, kill those, kill them, right? And all the girls who, never known a man, ooh, you know, the young ones,
Primo.
those are for you. Because I'm thy Lord, Yahweh, and this is the kind of shit that I brought in the first and second act,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? I'm the good guy, and I'm the good guy, right? And then so that's the thing. But so here's the thing: thou shalt not kill. Are we not? Is it not right there, day one to day two? Could it be that you see there is a God? Say you really are Yahweh, right? But it's it's like Joseph Smith. We do this, do that, and you'll become a God. What if you became a God? How would you do it better? Who would judge Yahweh? Like, what if we had to like create a world? Couldn't you see yourself being like, okay, how to break it to these guys that sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and if you want to eat, the little sheep has to die. What kind of parable do you cook up to explain that life sucks? You know what I mean? Sorry, maybe God like messed it up and has just spent his entire time since then trying to get it right. And like the reason the Bible is like, oh, we can like it's mockable and the message of Jesus is just a little bit better. You know what I mean? And maybe the book more, you know what I mean? Maybe it's just like, and now maybe God is literally talking to people like, okay, day 9,999.99. Okay, some a new prophet to say what? What would you do? I mean, maybe it's just you can't do anything. But we can all agree. Let me see. I'm sorry. I apologize. My wife was
Mm-hmm.
going to bed. Okay.
We can all agree.
Bear with me.
And we get
I let my brother
the
message
text
Texting,
my
and
son.
shit
texting back
upstairs.
here. This is what loving people in America do. They text each other from the other room now.
Listen, hey, to be honest, to be fair, well, I am broadcasting, it's the show, you know what I mean? So she's
Oh, wait. This show's so important that y'all text back and forth and she's upstairs and you're in the basement. Now, I do some pretty serious broadcasts and you see me deal with the door and you see me deal with the phone. That is being a professional, not being unprofessional. And while we're at it, okay, I wanted to mention this in the last segment. I've got two things. Randy brings up the right enemy. That's his little coded message, silly. And the other thing, you and your Penn and Teller crap. Okay? That's where you show your true atheistic hand. Because you want to talk about a cynical magician that's just into fooling people and then mocking them because they have a higher intelligence. I don't even like it. That really bothered me. Now, this last little segment, because you know what, I'm already sick of you, and I want to go watch Funny Sonny and laugh. So I'm gonna break this up into a couple parts so it's not too hard on my delicate nature. But you reek and stink and talk like the Zatakim, the Zatakai, the Zanash, and I've said it many times, but for real, you know how they turn the Jesus story to bullshit, because if you were up on your JLL instead of you and Modwiz playing games, you see, you'd already know that it was them that infiltrated all of the core religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim. So why is it that this still continues? I mean, unless you're Zatakim, you should be able to deal with this. And if you aren't sure if you're Zatakim or not, you know what the requirements are, right? Have no respect for life. And actually be fearful of it, and be fearful of the woman, because remember, the woman is thought of as evil because they bring life into this world and they represent matter. Now, I want to tell you something about me, Chanter. I wasn't raised with religion. I chose to have myself baptized at 12. I have never been anything on paper other than Lutheran, and I do not participate in the church system. I'm spiritual. I am not dogmatically religious, and if you want to have any hope of spirituality, you must give up all your religious dogma before you get on the path, or you get messed up in the head like you are. That's why Randy got out of it in 2002. And he knew about all this stuff behind the scenes, but when you're in it, it's kind of like when I decided to quit lying at 16. First, you gotta deal with the first lie you ever told yourself, and a minister takes that seriously. So, believe me, he knows what it's like to have that spark of the divine, whereas you mock it. And that's the big difference between you two. Okay. Yeah, this whole thing about sacrifice and then you say, well, you gotta be a hoe. So yeah, if I gotta be a hoe to pay my house rent, I'll put my kid on the rock, or I'll go ahead and commit that heinous act. That's what a good lawyer does, isn't it? Now, this whole thing about brazenness. Man, don't you know the 10 Commandments aren't really those 2 stone blocks with those 10 sentences about what not to do? I'd really expect more out of you at this time. And the virgins being hot, you're tipping your hand. Randy's going, go ahead, Chanter, hang yourself. Because you know Mr. Maugans don't roll like that. And what if you became a god and you were able to create a world? And you gotta do what you gotta do, and this parable that God messed it up? Man, you just really don't get it, do you? And you don't believe in destiny or divinity or appointed time in this no time space, but all it did was take a few people to wake up 3.5%, they say. And here again, I wouldn't expect anything else other than you to mock it. But in the meantime, I've had enough of your antics, and I can do what I want to do. So we are 36 minutes and 53 seconds into your chaos. And when you add me into it, we're at 82 minutes and 38 seconds. So I'm going to have a little break, and I'll resume when I feel like it. So this is part 1.